Morning. It is Friday again, and we are here to feature and celebrate the work of yet another changemaker. People who are working towards a more peaceful, prosperous, hopeful, and people and planet-centered world. Today, we have with us Hermann Arnold. Hello, Hermann. Are you with me?
Hi, Biljana.
For
Good
those of
morning.
you, good morning. For those of you who don't know, Hermann is a serial entrepreneur. He is a startup investor, and he is a democracy reformer, right?
Right.
And yes. So, can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yes. Well, first, thank you very much for hosting this stream. I'm really delighted to be here and with all the others that you have already interviewed. And I was born in Austria. I studied in Switzerland, and I have started several ventures. Yeah, some business ventures, some NGOs. One was Humantis, where we bring talent management to companies, and the idea is to democratize the workplace. Yeah, because we strongly believe that the workplace of the future should look more like something where everyone can contribute, everyone can take responsibility and bring things forward, especially the change that is needed. And on the other side, you mentioned democracy reforming. I think also the way how we organize our societies is a little bit outdated. We still do it the way we learned to do it 300 years ago, and it doesn't fit anymore. We see it everywhere. There's gridlock, solutions that everyone knows have to be done don't get done because there's gridlock in the political process. And even there, I tried to bring some change. I founded a political party. I did an NGO to influence elections towards the better, towards more direct democracy. And I also co-founded an NGO that brings together people that are doing innovation in democracy. And in the moment, my main focus is the climate, because what we found out is when we look, obviously, it's obvious that we all are concerned about the climate. And then we were looking in our network how many people are really currently working on solutions for climate. I don't talk about recycling, eating less meat and flying less. Yeah, that's obviously everyone contributes. But who is working on solutions to solve the problem? Because the climate change is human-made. Therefore, we as humans should be able to solve it. But we're always looking at others that they have to solve it. And that was quite an astonishing experience for us. And we had to look at ourselves and say, yes, we also don't do it. And therefore, we are now starting 42 Hacks. The idea to get exactly such people like you and me into the process of solving the climate. And I hope we can talk a little bit about that.
Yes.
And beside that, I'm father of 3 little girls, 4 years, 3, and 1 year. That means you can imagine that's also quite a change for my life, at least.
Yes. And as you rightly mentioned, today we're going to discuss how people who are listening, and you and me, right, can come together creating solutions for climate change, right?
Yeah.
So let's dive into the topic. Why now?
Well, the only question is why not earlier? Yeah, because I think it's quite late already. We all know that, and we have to act. And for me, the occasion to have those thoughts was when I left Humantis, the company I was founding and growing for more than 20 years. And the question was, what's next? And then obviously the next business venture was on the way, but then we thought, is this really everything we want to do, that we start another business, hopefully as successful or even more successful? And is it that? Is it that we want to tell our kids when they ask us, what did we do? And then we said, no, that's not enough. And therefore we started 42 Hacks, and I think it's not too early and rather too late.
Thank you. And what is the biggest challenge that you have been facing?
Well, now in 42 Hacks, we have a lot of challenges that we are facing. One is our ambition is to win 1 million people to collectively work together in such climate hacks, to work on solutions, and then also out of that funding a total of 420 open source startups that then take these solutions into real life. And there are a lot of challenges when you're starting things. And we all know that you have just to get one time more up than you fall. But in the moment, one difficulty is to really attract those people that are not yet active in the climate area. Yeah, obviously everyone who is active and does something, they feel quite attractive. But the question is, how can we reach those researchers at General Electric, those programmers at Microsoft or Google, those marketing gurus at those companies? Yeah? How can we reach those people and convince them that they become part of such a movement? And that's one of the challenges we are facing, and we are iterating a lot of things. And once what we have learned is that we all have no time, and we are always in the midst of doing something. And therefore, the only thing how we think we can engage people is to say, okay, there's an event, and then people join this event. And during this event, we jointly work together, but sometimes even alone, but together, that you feel the community and you get things done. But that's one challenge. And the other challenge, obviously, if you want to fund long-term 420 open source startups, then it's also quite an amount of money you have to raise. And that's the other equation of what we're doing is we want to convince companies to make the pledge. And the pledge means they say up to 1% of my employees can join such a hackathon on a paid leave. That means that those researchers at GE and programmers at Google don't have to take their holidays, but it's more or less their working time. And the companies even give each of these employees that join a hackathon a certain budget, so that these budgets together are the source for the crowdfunding of those startups. And that's also quite the journey to find those companies. And it's always, when you start something from 0 to 1, they always ask you, who's already in? Yeah, who is with you? How many people are you already? And you have to say, not that many. Yeah, we're just at the beginning. And then you always need some pioneers, some early movers that say, I like this idea, I like these guys, and then I join. And that's where this is the challenge that we are now in, more or less from 0 to 1. Yeah, obviously we have some dozens of people now joining 42 Hacks already, and thank you very much, Biljana. You're also one of those, and it's really cool that you're in the core team and helping to get this up and running. That means you're one of those early movers that bring the change and believe in things even when you don't see them yet. Yeah? And on the other side, we have some people in companies that are quite open to this idea, and they say, well, that's great, and let's build clusters and move these things forward. Therefore, we are quite confident, but we have high ambitions and we see the time running. And therefore, that is probably the biggest challenge, to get everything up in this momentum, because what we've also realized is if you want to start something like such a movement, and then the growth does not accelerate, yeah, it feels like dying. It's interesting. Yeah? We're fighting something that is based on this permanent growth idea, yeah, in the economy. But to fight it, you also have to have growth. It's really mind-blowing. But these are the challenges that we are momently facing.
And how are those challenges actually changing the way you are and the person who you are, and how you work?
Yeah, it always makes you humble when you understand that when you start something new, what you have learned in the past doesn't help necessarily in the future. And I was successful in business, and that's a different kind of how you do things. although I always was treating the team as equals and everyone had a voice, we had democratic decisions in our company, every important decision was taken by all the people. It's still a different thing than growing a volunteer organization, because there you have to find the people in a different way than in the recruiting way, because you cannot just publish an open position and then you pay people. Yeah, we are dependent on contributions that are voluntary and also a part or additional to the work that everyone is doing. And that makes you humble again to see, okay, I don't know anything and I have to start from scratch and have to learn how this works and get involved in that. And that makes you humble. Yeah.
Thank you for answering. And I can only contribute a little bit to your answer by sharing with our audience my experience when I joined our first meeting. I found myself needing to be really patient and reminding myself, I don't know who those people are. I have not yet learned to understand them, learn their languages, learn their way of doing things. So I just need to be really patient and kind. And sometimes I was really challenged. So it's interesting how, even though when we have those big ideas, those big reasons to come together, we need an extra effort, an extra human effort to be together and to create something together.
Yeah. And thank you very much for your patience and also for your tolerance. Yeah, because we understand we are more or less immigrants in the environment activities. Yeah, and you're in since long. And we are coming with a business background, and therefore we probably agree. We have a different language, we have different approaches how we tackle things. And therefore that can be a chance, I think. And that's what we think that can be our contribution. Yeah? But on the other side, obviously, we have to connect. Yeah, and that's difficult.
Yes, that's right. There can be a chance when we take the challenge, when we embrace the challenge. We have a comment from one of our viewers, and here it is. We are the last generation to save our planet. We need to take immediate, massive action. Thank you very much, kind community member.
Thank you very much, and I totally agree. It has to be massive. And what we have seen is there are so many people already working, but what we see they're also in their silos, yeah, they're in their bubbles. There are those people, and obviously you're working together with those people you know best, and so on. And I think that is not enough. Yeah, that means normal people like you and I have to get our things together and start acting and start working together and cross boundaries, cross silos, cross experiences. And what we also experienced, what we heard from a lot of climate activists, that those that are currently active in climate, they become, because of this big challenge and feeling that they cannot do anything, become more and more extreme. That means all the developments we see in politics also happen now here. There are those that are extremely climate and whatever has to be done immediately and so on. And that doesn't connect to the world of all others that well. And therefore, this massive activity that we have to start has to start from normal people like you and me. And we have to bring together all those different kinds of people. And that is one of the things that we hope to bring into that we bridge these boundaries and that we get the feeling that the whole world is working on solving the climate crisis and not just recycling. Yeah, it's important that we recycle and it's important that we reduce waste, all of that, totally important. But we have to step up the game and find solutions.
And you were talking about mobilizing 1 million people. Can you share with us, how do you intend to mobilize them? And of course, in what kind of roles?
Yeah. Well, as I said, we are still figuring out, but it's quite an easy mathematical calculation. That means if I win 5 people, And every of those 5 people wins again 5 people. Then you have this exponential growth. And then it's just a question in what time frame everyone wins. That means if everyone would win the next 5 people within a week, then we would be done in 2 to 3 months. Yeah. If this is done in 1 month, then we are done in 12 months. That means in the moment, and we get this feedback also from members that join, they say it feels a little bit like a pyramid game. Yeah. And to be honest, it somehow is a little bit. But why should we not use those mechanisms that we know that works to save the planet? Yeah, we have to save the planet. And I totally agree with this comment. We have to take massive action. And the only way to get that is that we say, okay, we win some people that say, that's a great idea. I want to be part. And my first contribution to be part of it is to win 5 other people. Yeah, and we have now figured out a format that somehow works. We're still figuring out how it works, but it's one hour. That means you publish in your network, be it on LinkedIn, be it on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. You post, hey, I'm hosting an event for 1 hour about climate because I'm really concerned and I want to turn my concern into action and I want to invite you. And then you activate your network and some people of your network say, okay, I listen for this 1 hour. And then during this 1 hour, we explain what we're doing. We answer questions to understand it, at least roughly. And then we ask, hey, now, after the first half hour that you have heard it, are there some people already saying, hey, I like this idea, I'm in. And then with those that are in, they register themselves and then they start their own event. Yeah, that for some it feels a little bit too fast, and we still have to figure out if we can do it better. But most of the time, 4 to 5 people stay and say they do it, and with that we hope to grow this idea. But it's tough, and we are not yet there that it really also feels fun and not pressured. But we all feel this pressure. We have to take massive action. Totally agree. And therefore, probably a little pressure is good if it's for good cause. And we are a non-profit organization. There's no profit for anybody. We are all working voluntarily. For us, it's about saving the planet.
We have another comment. Thank you so much. And actually, this is a question. So if other people would like to ask questions and have not yet, as you can see, we have a way to bring them in. So please let those questions come in. Here is the next question. How have you found raising investment in this space when the business model is less about profit and more about climate action? Perhaps where returns are distributed across the entire stakeholders.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was the same idea we had, that we thought, okay, we don't want to make a business out of it. It should be open source. And it means we believe that there are some companies that have also those issues that they want to move to a more sustainable business model.
Before you go forward, can you please explain for our audience, what does open source mean? Because maybe there are people who don't really know.
Thank you very much. Very good point. Open source means that all the results, all the intellectual property, all the ideas that you create, all the business models that you create, all the technology that you create is open for everyone. That means imagine the vaccination for COVID would be open source. That means you know all the recipes, you know how to create it, and everyone could create it all over the world without having to pay anyone anything. That is open source. That means you say we create it for the greater good of everyone. And that means what we want to create with 42 Hacks is an open source solution. That means as a company, yes, I invest a certain amount of money and I send some employees. But I know also other companies are doing that. And those people all together are working on problems that are also relevant for me. That means if there are solutions coming out, then I can take these ideas, this technology, these inventions, and take it into my business without having to pay anyone anything. And therefore, with this open source idea, we hope that people say, well, for example, how do we make trains more energy efficient. Yeah, that is something that every railway operator is asking about. Yeah? And I just learned that if people would drive the trains more sustainably, that means brake less hard, accelerate less fast, you can do that, you would save a lot of energy, really amazing amount of energy. And then it's the question, how can you do that? And if there's a solution, then I just can incorporate without having to pay anyone anything. That means obviously those who start these open source startups, they are not in for the big money. Yeah, they should have a decent living, at least as they had before. But what you're doing is you're creating solutions that will save the planet. And therefore, we hope, because it's open source, that companies engage in that, because they can look at it like an innovation process that is cross companies, cross disciplines. And if there's something coming out, they can profit from it.
Yes, and then the question of accessibility is solved. And the question of equality and equity is solved. Anybody who wants to replicate in one way or another can just take the blueprint and run with it, right?
Yes. Thank you very much. Very, very nicely explained.
So, how can people get involved? What do they need to do? I know you explained a little bit, but let's be very specific.
Very specific. Okay. You go on 42hacks.com. Then there's a menu point that's called events. Yeah? And in those events, we have our growth hacks published. Just go there and join one of these growth hacks. There we explain again how it's going a little bit more in detail. You can ask your questions. And then if you think, yes, I want to join this movement, then you just can join within this 1 hour. Yeah? That's the starting point. That means go to 42hacks.com and go to events, and then just pick one event that fits your schedule. And after that, I said you activate your network, that other people also join such a growth hack, that they become a member. Yeah? And then when you're a member and you have activated your network, then you're more or less done for the time being. But what we then publish is every week, you get a newsletter where you see some featured new members, what was happening, and you see also some featured tasks that we ask the community to solve. Some are single tasks. That means I just can pick it when I have time, and I say I do that, and then you work on that, and you contribute to the whole thing. Or you take part in an action hack. That's a 3-hour hack where you create with others solution for something that is a little bit more complex. For example, okay, we want to iterate on how we win companies to do the pledge. Yeah, that means we do an action hack. Some people are joining, and then together we work out the next approach, how to approach companies. And that's more or less what you can do at the moment. And then our first hack will be end of the year, beginning of the next year. And then if you think the topic that is there is good for you, then you just join this hack. That's a 1 week. And if you have an employer who pays your salary, then you try to convince your employer to give you this time free, paid leave, and give you a budget to contribute, to take part also in the crowdfunding of the startups that arise out of it.
Can you give us an example of some of the topics that will be worked during those hacks?
We're now working out with what topics we will sorry. We're now working out which topics we want to start with, but you can imagine one could be energy, or very specific energy of railways. One could be the oceans, one could be soil, one could be biodiversity, one could be plastics, and so on. It means all the topics that we have that impact our climate. And we have 42 iterations. Yeah, our name 42 hacks we play a little bit with this number, but 42 comes from the Hijacker's Guide to the Galaxy, where a computer is calculating for millions of years the ultimate answer to everything, to life, to the universe, to everything, and that is 42. And therefore we call it 42, that we try to produce the answer for everything, but we use it now also for example, doing 42 iterations. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hermann. How are you feeling? How is your voice? Is it painful?
It's okay. It's okay. Sorry, I had
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We have another comment from the kind community, and this is a very debated topic. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree that the example I brought, that if you drive trains more energy efficient, then it uses less energy. And obviously that could be something that you use AI for. And I think everyone sees it, that probably trains and trucks and cars soon will be driven autonomously with AI. And there are obviously a lot of people that will lose their jobs. Yeah. On one side, the young generation already knows it. Yeah, that's why it's a shortage of truck drivers and the shortage of train drivers, because why should they join a job that has no future? But there are millions of people in those jobs. Yeah. And ultimately they will lose their jobs. And that's something that we see in any transition, that there are people that are on the loser side, temporarily, hopefully only. And that's a big challenge for the society, on one side, to provide social security for those people, that you don't have to fear about your future and about your pension, about how you raise your kids. I think that's a very, very serious thing. And we are in this thing of a transformation. That's not a question of climate change. That's a question of the technology change that we have. And we hope that we will find as many green jobs that you can transition to that, but it will not be an easy job. And we have seen it time and time again. When the automatic textile machines were invented, there were some regions that were demonstrating against it, and there were regions that said, no, we don't want to have these automated machines. We want the people that working there having their job. But ultimately, it changed. But also ultimately, to say there were more jobs created than destroyed. I hope this will this time be the same, but it's not an easy transition. And probably we as 42 Hacks also have to take care of the consequences of what our solutions will bring. I totally agree. And it's not a one-dimensional way that we are going. Yeah, we have to be aware. And I think it's a question of the society and of all of us then to help those people. But I don't think we can stop the progress that's on the way. We have to embrace it, and have to embrace it for the good of the planet, but also for the good for the people that are mostly affected by it. It's an important topic. Thank you for raising it.
And it can be a topic for one of the 42 hacks.
Totally agree.
Because we also need human-centered solutions.
Yeah.
I know that we are about already 30 minutes in the conversation, but we have one more comment in here.
Yeah, I based on the time, I don't read it. I think you all can read it. I agree. To get the credit for is very important, but most of the time when you look at the open source community, having the credit is the social acknowledgement that I am the creator of this idea. And that's very important in the part of the open source. You can take it, you don't have to pay, but you have to credit. That means name the person, honor the person that did this idea. Yeah, that's when you're quoting text from an author, you say who it was. And therefore, that is for some people, it's enough. Yeah. And because it's about the greater good. And as long as I can live in a decent way, I'm fine with that, because then I'm happy that my idea and my concepts spread. Obviously, there are others that say, no, I want to get all also the economic benefit of my invention, then for those people, open source is not the best way. But when you look at the scientific community, for example, they are all like that. Yeah, they publish everything, and the only thing they're really very serious about, you have to quote. Yeah, and you have to quote properly. Yeah? And that's also in other areas. And we think there are always these two worlds. The one, every profit is for me, and the other, I want to share the profit. For me, it's just important that I get the credits, the social credits for it. And we are hoping that there are enough people that work the open source way.
Thank you so much, Hermann. It has been really insightful to listen to you. Thank you for joining us. And for those of you out there, please, if you feel the call to do something about the planet and about the future generations, do join 42 Hacks. It is very simple. You don't have to do a lot. You can choose what you can do. And of course, we will be creating the ways we'll do things together. Right? So once again, Hermann, it has been a real pleasure. Have a lovely weekend. Enjoy your 3 lovely girls. And all the best to 42 Hacks.
And thank you, Biljana, for inviting me and for joining this ride. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And I hope some of you we will see again. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. So thank you very much. As usual, it has been a pleasure. See you next Friday.